concentration, relaxed. It wasn't a smooth or particularly handsome face. It was too thin and angular to be merely pleasant, and the nose was out of alignment due to a heated disagreement with his younger brother during their teens. Gabe hadn't held it against him. Because he'd forgotten to wear a hat, his dark blonde hair fell untidily around his face. It was long and a bit shaggy over the collar of his parka, and had been styled hastily with his fingers hours before. His eyes, a dark clear green, were starting to burn from staring at the snow. While his tires swished over the cushioned asphalt, he glanced down at his odometer, saw that there was only a quarter mile left, then looked back to the road. That was when he saw a car coming at him, out of control. He didn't even have time to swear. He jerked the Jeep to the right just as the oncoming car seemed to come out of its spin. The Jeep skimmed over the snow piled on the shoulder, swaying dangerously before the tires chewed down to the road's surface for traction. He had a bad moment where he thought the Jeep was going to roll over like a turtle. Then all he could do was sit and watch and hope the other driver was as lucky. The oncoming car was barreling down the road sideways. Though only seconds had passed, Gabe had time to think of how nasty the impact would be when the car slammed into him. Then the driver managed to straighten out. With only feet between them, the car fishtailed and swerved to avoid the collision, then began to slide helplessly toward the guardrail. Gabe set his emergency brake and was out of the Jeep when the car rammed into the metal. He nearly fell on his face, but his boots held as he raced across the road. It was a compact, a bit more compact now, with its right side shoved in and its hood sprung like an accordion, also on the passenger side. He had another moment to think, and he grimaced at the thought of what would have happened if the car had hit on the driver's side. Fighting his way through the snow, he managed to make it to the wrecked car. He saw a figure slumped over the wheel, and he yanked at the door. It was locked. With his heart in his throat, he began to pound against the window. The figure moved. A woman, he saw from the thick wave of wheat blonde hair that spilled onto the shoulders of a dark coat. He watched her reach up and drag a ski cap from her head. Then she turned her face to the window and stared at him. She was white, marble white. Even her lips were colorless. Her eyes were huge and dark, the irises almost black with shock. And she was beautiful, stunningly, breathtakingly beautiful. The artist in him saw the possibilities in the diamond-shaped face, the prominent cheekbones, the full lower lip. The man in him rejected them and banged on the glass again. She blinked and shook her head as if to clear it. As the shock passed out of them, he saw that her eyes were blue, a midnight blue. They filled now with a rush of concern. In a quick movement, she rolled down the window. "Are you hurt?" she demanded before he could speak. "Did I hit you?" "No, you hit the guardrail." "Thank God." She let her head slump back on the seat for a moment. Her mouth was as dry as dust, and her heart, though she was already fighting to control it, was thudding in her throat. "I started to skid coming down the incline. I hoped I might be able to ride it out. Then I saw you and I was sure I was going to hit you." "You would have if you hadn't swerved away toward the rail." He glanced at the front of her car again. The damage could have been worse. Much worse. If she'd been going any faster. There was no use speculating. He turned to her again, studying her face for signs of shock or concussion. "Are you all right?" "Yes, I think so." She opened her eyes again and tried to smile at him. "I'm sorry. I must have given you quite a scare." "At least." But the scare was over now. He was less than a quarter of a mile from hearth and home, and stuck in the snow with a strange woman whose car wasn't going anywhere for several days. "What the hell are you doing out here?" She took the furiously bitten-off words in stride as she unhooked her seatbelt. The long, deep breaths she'd been taking had gone a long way toward steadying her. "I must have gotten turned around in the storm. I was trying to get down to Lonesome Ridge to wait it out, find a place for the night. That's the closest town, according to the map, and I was afraid to pull over on the shoulder." She glanced over at the guardrail and shuddered. "What there is of it. I don't suppose there's any way I'm going to get my car out of here." "Not tonight." Frowning, Gabe stuck his hands in his pockets. The snow was still falling and the road was deserted. If he turned around and walked back to his Jeep, leaving her to fend for herself, she might very well freeze to death before an emergency vehicle or a snowplow came along. However much he'd have liked to shrug off the obligation, he couldn't leave a woman stranded in this storm. "The best I can do is take you with me." There wasn't an ounce of graciousness in his tone. She hadn't expected any. If he was angry and impatient about nearly being plowed into and inconvenienced on top